So this is how to turn cold prospects into booked meetings with a systematic approach that generates 1 call per 1,000 leads contacted if you're starting from fresh. So this is what we're going to cover. Step 1, defining your ideal customer profile. Step 2, setting up email infrastructure. 3, building out your prospect list. 4, crafting your email sequence. 5, writing compelling subject lines. 6, how to perfect your email copy. 7, launching and monitoring. 8, multi-channel follow-up. 9, avoiding spam and maintaining deliverability. 10, how to optimize and scale. And then 11, we're going to touch on legal compliance. So step 1, defining your ideal customer profile. So this is what you need to know about your ideal customer. What's the typical size of the company, right? What industry or vertical are they in? What's the geographic location? And then you have additional things like what tech stack do they use, right? Are there any key triggers that typically indicate that they're in prime buying position for your solution? So that might be a new marketing director, etc. More than any of this, what you really want to know is what pain points and challenges are they facing that you can solve. So in terms of action steps, what you want to do is create a detailed buyer persona based on all of these things. You can use ChatGPT or Claude to brainstorm a bunch of relevant job titles, and you probably have a list already from the people that you've sold to. Research common industry challenges, and on top of this, go back through all of your sales calls and ideally, if possible, interview all of your clients. So go to all of your clients and say to them, hey, I'm looking to do a really quick 5-minute interview if that's cool with you. I really just want to dig into what the reasons are that you bought from us. Get on that call with them and ask them, why did you buy from us? And from there, map those problems to your solution. From there, it's about crafting your offer in a way that's actually going to be attractive on outbound. So the foundation of outbound success is all effective offers must do one of 3 things, right? That's make money, or save time. Okay, all attractive B2B offers are going to do one of these 3 things. But beyond that, there are 2 main types of offers, right? We have demand capture and we have demand generation. So demand capture is things like we do web design or we do accounting services, right? Whereas demand generation is things like selling lead gen or things like we help SaaS companies reduce customer acquisition costs by 40%, right? Now, the thing about demand capture is only 3 to 5% of the market is ever going to be in the market for your solution at any one time. And so what you need to do is craft your offer in such a way that it appeals to those people who might not be seeking what you do. This is the real reason why selling things like lead generation, even paid ads is much easier typically than selling things like branding and web design. The other thing about demand generation is it works effectively at scale because you're addressing pain points that all of your customers face, and you're going to get a higher response as a result. So in terms of how to transform your offer, so if you have a demand generation offer, a demand capture offer rather, and you're trying to turn that into a demand generation offer, this is what you want to do. Start with the problem. So focus on the pain point that your prospect is facing, not on your solution, right? Then you want to focus on outcomes. So what measurable results and benefits can your target audience achieve through working with you? What measurable results and benefits have other customers that you've worked with achieved, right? Because that's what you can use to then craft an offer that says, hey, this is what we can achieve for you because we did it for a similar company. You then want to use some specific metrics in what you're talking about and connect that directly to business impact. So you want to talk about things in terms of revenue improvements, cost savings, or efficiency, right? So what you end up with is instead of we build websites, you might get we help manufacturers generate 40% more qualified leads from their website in 90 days. Instead of we offer bookkeeping services, you might get we help small businesses save 15 hours per month on financial admin while ensuring 100% tax compliance. Now just think about the difference between each of those 2 examples, right? Which one would you be more likely to reply to if you got that in your inbox? From there, you're going to set up email infrastructure. So you want to do this before you write a single line of copy, right? Because this is going to be 14 days. This is a fixed 14-day period. And so you can't really get around that. What you want to do is warm all of these up and then you go into all of the other steps. Now, Smart Lead and Instantly are probably the 2 biggest cold email sending platforms or modern cold email sending platforms on the market. They both have advanced guides on how to do this. Very easy to find. But essentially the long and the short of it is you have a couple of options when it comes to domains and email accounts. So option 1 is you put 3 accounts on each domain and you send 15 cold emails per day per account. Option 2, you put 2 accounts per domain and send 20 emails per day per account. Now look, these are not by any means hard and fast rules. These are just what we like to stick to be conservative and to be cautious, right? You want to buy professional domains, and typically this is going to be lookalike domains to your current domain. So our, domain is leveragedoutbound.io, right? So what we'll do is get leveragedoutbound.io, but what we'll actually do is get .com domains, because typically .com domains we see have great deliverability. There are other different, top level domains, so that's things like .co, .info, .xyz. There are other ones that have good deliverability as well, but to be on the safe side, especially if you're starting out, you just want to start out with .com. So we'll get try leveragedoutbound.com, get leveragedoutbound.com, leveragedoutboundteam.com, right? Make sure that you're not using anything like, your name at gmail.com, because those are personal email accounts, and there are different deliverability requirements. From there, you want to configure DKIM, DMARC, and SPF, and make sure all of the backend is set up. Now, if you're using a reseller or you're setting up directly through Instantly or SmartLead, all of this is taken care of for you. In terms of warm-up strategy, what we typically do is match warm-up and cold emails one-to-one, right? So if we're sending 15 cold emails per day in that account, then we'll typically send 15 to 20 warm-up emails. And you want to keep that running the whole time, so you never turn it off. From there, it's about building out your prospect list. So typically for all clients, we're going to start with Apollo.io. Pretty much all prospect databases are going back to LinkedIn, right? But the thing about Apollo is it's extremely comprehensive and also pretty cost effective. So typically we'll start there. But then you also can scrape leads directly within clay.com. And because we use Clay for a lot of our data enrichment, that is another option that we sometimes use. And then if you're doing local lead gen, there are going to be other tools, right? There are going to be things like Serpa API, things like Outscraper, things like D7 Lead Finder. And what these tools do is they scrape Google Maps. So essentially you'll be able to get a comprehensive list of local businesses, which might not always appear on LinkedIn or in LinkedIn databases. You also have Sales Nav as an additional option. So data points that you want, full name, what their job title is, the company name and size, verified email address. And so in terms of email verification, typically we use Clay for that. And that's why I haven't mentioned any verification tools here, because what we're doing is we're calling APIs within Clay. So the main thing that we use is debounce to verify emails. We use another tool called bounce ban. And the reason for that is a lot of the time when you verify emails, you get some where essentially the email verifier is unsure, and we call those catch-all emails. And so what we use bounce ban for is we put all of those catch-all emails through bounce ban, and that's going to tell us whether or not they're safe to email. Beyond that, then you also want to find the email addresses for the people who either you didn't have emails for in the first place, or you might have had an email, but you've verified it and it's come back as invalid. And typically our internal workflow for that is we'll use Lead Magic and then find email. From there, it's about crafting your email sequence, right? So the way we like to do this is we send 2 to 3 emails max, and we normally send them with 3-day gaps in between them. And so, gone are the days where you used to send 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-step emails, maybe over a month. What we find is much more effective now is to do something called TAM mapping. So we'll map the TAM, which is the total addressable market, and that tells us the number of leads that we have to potentially reach out to. And then we typically say that, every 2 to 3 months you can hit someone up, particularly if you're using a new offer or a new social proof, or you've changed the angle or something like that. And so what we find more effective is to actually reach out to more people in that TAM rather than hammering the same people with endless follow-up emails, right? So these are just a few examples of what you can do in those 3 emails, but really you can, rotate the order, you can switch it up. This is just to give some inspiration. So email 1 might be the direct value prop, right? So you lead with value, tell them exactly who you are and what you do. Soft ask, so typically we're not including a calendar link in there. We're not trying to push for a call directly in that first email. But what's important is a personalized opening so that you show that you've done your homework, you actually understand who they are. Super clear value prop, right? Don't waste words here, because people these days are just skimming through emails. They really don't have the time to be reading through, 150, 200 word emails unless, you've specifically tested that and it's performing better than shorter emails. Now, I said don't include your calendar link. In certain specific cases, we actually do now, right? And that's where our client has a really great offer. And typically, that's going to be the only case where we're including the calendar link. So it is something that we've actually started re-experimenting with, and we're finding good results. But for most offers, I'd say 90% of offers, you don't want to include a calendar link in that first email, not least because including links is going to hurt deliverability. Email 2, again, as I said, as an example, you might include a case study, right? So, something that works really well for us, for some of our clients is, hey, I read this additional context, so you insert in there the additional context that you read on them. And then I thought you might want to see how we help similar companies. Now, it's really important that the social proof here is actually a similar company, or that it's a company that is aspirational to the company you're emailing, right? And so what the thing to understand here is including generic social proof just for the sake of it oftentimes isn't going to be effective. What you actually want to do is match that social proof to the company you're emailing, or you want that social proof to be above them in terms of, this is actually a bigger company that we worked with, and it's likely to be impressive to you because you're in the same vertical, or you have the same characteristics, or you're the same type of company, but they're actually bigger in the industry than you are, so it might be impressive to you. Now, the thing to be careful of about that is if you're targeting SMBs, or say you're targeting companies with 50 to 200 employees, and you're including social context about working with Nike, working with, IBM, then a lot of the time those companies are going to see that and think, well, this offer isn't really for me. And subconsciously, they might even be thinking this is likely to be too expensive for us because you actually haven't told them that the social proof matches exactly their direct situation. So you offer that relevant case study and then soft CTA, plus or minus a calendar link, right? And then step 3, typically we're just going to be providing some final value. Typically a lot of our email sequences will stop at 2 emails, but that third email might just be to kind of bump it up to the top of their inbox, or to try a different angle or something along those lines. Step 5, write compelling subject lines. So this is, something pretty quick, but a lot of the time, the things that are going to get your email read are the subject line and the preview text. So everyone knows, what the subject line is. The preview text is what you can actually see of the email. So that kind of first line is going to determine whether or not someone actually opens your email. So in terms of writing subject lines, you want the entire email to be under 75 words, but the subject line you want to be 2 to 3 words max, and it should create curiosity without being clickbait, right? So you can use personalization where relevant, but typically we stay away from using, the prospect's company name in the subject line or in the emails, because a lot of the time that's a clear giveaway that you've used AI or that it's a sales email. So things like quick question, people have been using for 3 or 4 years, still works. Q about LinkedIn, all in lowercase apart from LI, another one that works well. And then prospect's name, your name, intro again. Step 6, perfect your email copy. So that opening line, so that preview text that they're going to see, is key to getting the email opened, and also key to actually hooking their attention once the email is open. So there are a ton of different things you can do here. Reference recent company news, mention a mutual connection, comment on a LinkedIn post they made, reference their achievements, comment on, a summary of what the company does, etc., etc. In terms of body copy, you want to aim for 1 main point per email. You don't want to distract your prospects, right? A lot of the time I'll get an email and it says, hey, we do this, which can X by 50% and also do this and that. And it's just too much. It's way too much. It's way too much for your prospect to focus on. What you want to do is focus on 1 clear point per email and focus on the benefit that prospect is going to receive. Don't focus on the features. That's kind of a key guide, a key principle for sales as a whole. And it's certainly true when it comes to outbound emails. You want to use bullet points for scanning in certain cases. In the vast majority of emails, we actually don't include bullet points whatsoever, and it's just a plain text email. But sometimes where our client has, an offer where it is kind of, easy to differentiate or delineate the different aspects of what they do or the different benefits, then we'll use bullet points. And you want to include social proof, as we touched on previously. In terms of the CTA, you want to keep it soft and low pressure. Including the calendar link, like I said, is something that you can do. Typically we're not, but it's something that we're experimenting again and seeing good results in certain cases. But what you want to do is make it easy to say yes, right? So something like, hey, something like that second email we spoke about. Hey, can I send you over a case study of a company that we helped that is very similar to you? Super easy to say yes. Hey, can we send over, a quick audit that we performed on your current, ad strategy? Again, super easy to say yes. You want to use non-pushy language and just get a yes, because from there, then they're in your pipeline and you can continue to follow them up from there. Step 7, launch and monitor. So we have a pre-launch checklist. So you want to test any links or attachments. Typically we're not including any attachments, but if you have included any links, you want to test those. You want to make sure all of the email addresses are verified and double verified. That's, verifying catch-alls as well. make sure that your tracking and analytics is set up. And then you want to start with conservative send volumes. So typically, like I said, we're sending 15 to 20 emails per account per day, depending on how many accounts are on the domain. We might start out with 5 and then gradually ramp up to 15. In terms of key metrics, you're looking for a reply rate of 1% per step. So if you send a two-step sequence, you're looking for a 2% overall reply rate. If you send a 3-step sequence, you're looking for a 3% overall reply rate. Positive reply rate should be 15% of all of those replies as a KPI that you're targeting. And then meeting booked rate, you want to target 25% of the positive replies in terms of meeting books. So in terms of a realistic expectation, you might aim for 1 call per 1,000 leads that you contact when you're starting out. Things like open rate, unsubscribe rates, deliverability rates. Deliverability rates doesn't really mean much. What you're looking at is actually the reply rate. If your reply rate is above 1%, you can typically say that you don't have a massive issue with deliverability. Open rates are something that have become less and less reliable over time. You can, if you have a very specific reason that you want us to leave it on, you can still track it, and you're typically aiming for 60% plus, but I would just look at the reply rate instead. So once you then get a positive reply, what you want to do is set up something which you can do in both Smart Lead and Instantly, and that's called subsequences. And so what that allows you to do is actually create automated follow-up sequences that are going to trigger off of that positive reply. So you would then assign, maybe you might have an information sequence for people that are asking for more information. Then that information sequence, it might have 5 steps in it. And typically what you'll see is that someone might not reply to that initial email, but by step 2 or step 3 of that subsequence, they might reply. Now, to take this to the next level, what you want to do is integrate with LinkedIn. So as soon as someone replies positively to your campaign, whether they're requesting information, whether it's a meeting request, or they just have a query, you request to connect with them on LinkedIn, and then you can send them LinkedIn messages as a follow-up as well, just to ensure that you're top of mind across channels. In terms of response management, you want to have templates for those common responses so that you're not scrambling to kind of answer responses as they come in. And then you want to have a system for quick meeting scheduling. So again, you want to have an easily accessible calendar link and be able to get to that so that you can schedule meetings at ease. Step 9, avoid spam and maintain deliverability. So, to avoid spam, things you want to do are avoiding spam trigger words. So you're using things like Mail Meteor, and they've got a spam checker. You want to avoid any words that come up in that. Avoid excessive punctuation, avoid caps, avoid any emojis or anything like that. Links, if you have to send them, you can send 1 per email, typically better in the follow-ups because at that point you've got into the inbox, hopefully with your first email. And images, again, very similar. We typically don't send images, but if you have to, again, I wouldn't include more than 1 per email. In terms of can spam, you want to include a physical address and make sure it's easy for people to unsubscribe. Make sure that your email lists are clean. If you have a bounce rate of above 3%, then you want to stop that campaign and re-clean the list. Don't just go purchasing random lists off the internet from strangers. When it comes to volume, you want to gradually increase that. So you want to gradually ramp, like I mentioned earlier. Monitor for any kind of, spam complaints, and use authentic and personalized content. Now, in terms of rotating between multiple accounts, if you use Smart Lead or Instantly, they're going to automatically allow you to do this without any additional effort on your side. Step 10 is about optimizing and scale. So, you've got A/B testing elements. So that's things like the subject line, the length of the email, how you're personalizing the email, what you're saying in your CTA, and also, things like including the case study versus just including a direct value prop. To scale from, if you have a successful campaign and let's say you're booking, 1 call per 1,000 leads you contact, or that you're getting 1 positive response at least for every 350 leads, then what you want to do is scale horizontally rather than vertically. So you add additional domains and email accounts to warm those up, and again, increase the daily volume gradually on those. You can hire team members with SOPs on how to do this. And then develop your own templates. If you have a really successful email that's printing meetings, then you might just want to move around certain elements, but then you have that template to carry forward into future campaigns. Then you can also do things like advanced targeting with clay.com. You can start to add in additional personalization with AI and see if that provides a meaningful lift in your campaigns as well. In terms of performance focus, so what you want to do is improve your reply and positive reply rates. The way you can do this is by testing different value props, refining your ideal client profile based on responses. So if you're getting a lot of people saying this isn't relevant to me, then you really want to look at that targeting and see, is there something we can do better here? And then, like I said, update personalization approaches. So super quickly on legal compliance, if you are emailing within the US, then you need to be CAN spam compliant. What that means is having a physical business address in every email, having a clear unsubscribe option. So the way we typically do this is by including something at the end of the email that is like something like, hey, by the way, if this isn't relevant to you, then just let me know and I won't email you again. If someone does request to opt out, you need to honor that within 10 business days. And there's a requirement not to kind of use any deceptive practices. So in terms of things you want to be doing, both to get a high reply rate, but also to stay out of spam and to not be reported as spam, you want to always be providing genuine value, right? You need to respect unsubscribes immediately, keep compliance records, use professional language and focus on relationships rather than just trying to sell or get everyone to a call immediately. So quick reference guide. So before you start, you want to make sure you've identified and defined that ICP. You've got your email infrastructure set up. You've got your prospect list built out. You've got your 2 to 3 step email sequence created. Subsequences ready. You've got a campaign that contains a physical address and opt out. Time zones and sending times are correct. The campaigns are set to send in plain text. You've removed any spam words. And also you've got spin tags or fully unique sequences using something like Twain or Octave to kind of avoid landing in spam due to templating of your email, and that just means your email being seen that many times that it starts being sent to spam. During your campaign, you want to make sure that daily send volumes are conservative, you have those follow-up sequences, those subsequences active, reply rate monitoring, so you want to aim for that 1% benchmark per step, you are maintaining spam compliance, and that you've got that continuous optimization running, and you're constantly checking on those KPIs. So the key takeaway is that quality wins over quantity, although you do need both, right? Focus on providing genuine value, trying new things, and optimize based on the data that you get back. Your cold email campaigns can become a super reliable, very cost-effective source of qualified leads if you execute systematically. So if you're ready to fill your calendar, start implementing these strategies today.